A huge thank you and shout out to NGBN TV for sponsoring this video podcast episode. On today's episode, we'll be hearing from Eddie Thomason. At 8, he was forced to take care of his mom, who raised 2 kids on $13,000 a year of disability. His dad abused his mom and left, and he realized to get out of his neighborhood, he would have to either sell drugs, be an entertainer, or be a successful athlete. He played football through college with a scholarship, but fell short of the NFL. Now he works with kids in college. Welcome to the Naked Podcaster. I'm Jen Taylor. I'm so excited. I have Eddie Thomason. Eddie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Jen. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation. I'm just happy to be here.
Me too. And you and I cyber met on LinkedIn. And, you know, I'm never opposed to having meetings with people. I really like to connect and have meetings. But a lot of times on LinkedIn, people want to get your business too. And so it takes a special conversation. For me, like, I need to know you're engaging and for real, like you've actually looked past my name. And you did that, and we met and connected and had like a virtual coffee date. And your son, who's 2 months old, was with you for that. So that was really fun. So we've connected before. Where are you at? You're East Coast.
Yep, I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Binghamton, New York now. So not close to New York City. It's about 3 hours away from New York City. But for people that are, I guess they have their geography lessons, I'm about an hour and 20 minutes south of Syracuse.
All right. Nice job. So tell me your website. I have your website up. So if I'm looking up into the atmosphere, it's because that's where my screen is. Your website is eddiethompson.com. So like not super hard, people.
Exactly. Just make sure you spell the last name right. It's Thomason. Don't put a P in there. It's Thomason, not Thompson.
That's right. So I'll have that in the show notes. Everybody will be able to find you in any way that they want. But dive in and tell me about the website. Who are you and what do you do?
Absolutely. So again, for everybody who's already listening, my name is Eddie Thomason. I am an inspirational speaker inside of the youth and college university markets. I love to do what I do because I help kids shed self-limiting beliefs and step into their own greatness so they can pursue a life that they're passionate about living. And that's been my passion for a while now, just helping kids just really overcome themselves and overcome their circumstances, because your past does not have to determine what your future is. And that's a firm belief that I have, and I love doing it. In addition to that, I also do some coaching as well. So I basically help a lot of seasoned business owners that are trying to figure out how to keep millennials inside of their ranks, because millennials typically leave after 3 to 5 years, right? So I think the voice that I have to speak to youth, but also the business savviness that I have running a business on myself, I basically help those entrepreneurs figure out how to establish mentorship type of opportunities that actually show the millennials that they care about them and not just about their productivity at work, but their overall health, their overall relationship, like all the things that millennials want to know that you care about, which helps them stick at your organization so you're not spending so much money in turnover and just hiring the next person. So that's another aspect of what I do. And then outside of that, man, I'm just a regular guy. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I love to have fun. I'm just a regular dude that's honestly just trying to continue to live out the gifts and the talents that my God, my Lord and Savior has blessed me with, and just trying to share that with the world too.
And you have 2 little ones.
Yes. I have a 16-month-old and I have a 3-month-old who will actually be 4 months at the end of this month, which is crazy. It's a week from now.
So that's the end of July 2020. Okay. So regardless of when people are, they're close together. So that's a lot of fun.
Exactly.
I think it's super. I didn't realize from our conversation before that your speaking was predominantly at colleges, which is phenomenal. And then to look at seasoned business owner with those same exact students, with those same exact kids in that age group. I kind of understand. I think I know the college aspect of it just from a little bit of your history. But how did you decide to work with millennials?
Primarily because it's a lot millennials today, right? They're between the age of like 16 to 22, right? It's that younger generation that's coming up and entering the workforce right now, just graduated from college. And a lot of these kids, man, they're that similar situation as me. It's like you get to that point in life and you're like, what do I do next? Like now that I no longer have the structure of high school for some, and some of them is I don't have the structure from college, and I'm now expected to be an adult, right? Like I have to do this adulting thing, and now it's like, where do I go from here, right? Like, is this just what life is? Like, do I just literally wake up and go to work and come home and eat and watch TV and go to sleep and wake up and do the exact same thing on repeat? So it's like that crossroads that we all hit where it's like, we're no longer kids and we don't have like this unlimited freedom. Like we have to actually accept responsibility and start doing things and being productive citizens in the world, right? So I love being able to work with millennials because a lot of the times, it's both ends of the spectrum. Sometimes you get some people that are like very entitled, like they expect like, oh, I did everything my parents told me to do. Like I went to school, I got good grades, I went to college, now I got a good job, so I should be rich. Like, no, it doesn't work like that, right? So it's like first you got to help them kind of figure out that and break that false belief first and help them figure out what a work ethic is. And then you have other people who are amazingly talented, like just phenomenal people, great people skills, amazing like people to have a part of your organization. However, they don't know that or see that about themselves, right? And you got to kind of help them realize that so that they can step into their roles and in their gifts so they can start excelling in those careers or even, splitting off and doing their own businesses and their own things as they step into their own savviness, right? So I just love working with millennials, man. I think it's a different parts of the perspective, but being able to have that conversation with them and help them bridge the gap from wherever they are to where they want to go is a huge passion of mine.
I have kids older than millennials, and then I have kids that are millennials, and I'm like, were you people raised in the same house by the same parents? And it's not just like every child has their own personality. It's beyond that, which is
right.
really confusing and fascinating and interesting to me. Do you feel like millennials, why don't they stay at places?
Primarily because I think millennials grow up in a microwave type of environment, right? More so than what I did, because I'm only 27, so I'm not so far removed from the millennial generation, right? But it's so much more of a microwave society that millennials grew up in. It's kind of like, I need this quick fix now. So it's like if they're not getting the results that they wanted at an organization, or if they're not getting the support that they felt as though they need, or, they hear all this stuff around, like, you got the Kardashians and all these people that get paid really to do nothing. So in their mind, it's like, I should get paid to do nothing. Like, why the heck am I here, grinding it out, trying to put in my dues when I could just go do something and get rich, right? Whereas though, obviously that's not the case. We both know that if anything worth having, it takes time to build and it takes a work ethic and it takes all the things that's necessary to create success. However, a lot of millennials aren't taught that, and it's not just in the home either. It's what you're consumed in social media. You got to think like they're social media babies. They're the ones that you gave the phone to, and they already knew what the heck was going on at 3 years old. You know what I mean? So it's a completely different environment or upbringing that they had. Because for me, I still lived in a time when there was no cell phones. And like I said, I'm only 27. Like the only cell phone I saw when I was a kid was the big, huge, clunky one that you put inside the car that only Deion Sanders had. Like, I was like, ain't nobody as important as Deion Sanders. Like, nobody needs a cell phone. Where today, if you don't have a cell phone, it's like, what are you doing, dog? Like, are you alive? Are you okay?
Yeah,
right?
I know. You can be in dire straits and still have a cell phone.
Exactly.
It's interesting because my youngest daughter's 10 now, and a couple of years ago, she was frustrated with us, and there were two conversations that happened close together. So see if you can relate to this with millennials, because she's not a millennial, she's 10.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, I said, I know you like to dance and sing. We can get you into lessons. And she said, I don't need lessons. I just need you to put me on the stage and give me a microphone because everyone thinks I'm cute. And I was like, dude, how do I parent a child where I'm like, that's not going to work, actually.
Right.
You're not all that cute. Like, you don't want to blow their self-esteem up at the same time. It's like, holy cow. And then she was like, indignant that she didn't have her own YouTube channel because she like, I just need my own YouTube channel, so I don't know why you guys can't just let me do that. We don't let you do that. We do all the work for you. And because they see the most famous, they see the highlight reel, right? They see the highlight reel of the people, and it can be a great YouTube channel, for an 8 to 10-year-old to watch with this family with kids and everything, but they're one out of a billion. I don't even know, the numbers have got to be staggering.
Right.
Just give her a microphone and a YouTube channel and she's a I mean, really, I was like, okay, that doesn't work.
Jen, I gotta say, one, I applaud the confidence that your 10-year-old has.
See, like, that is right?
Confidence is definitely very, very important. So I love the fact that she had that confidence.
However,
however, I feel like there's a lot of times, like I said, it's that microwave society, right? Yeah. It's that thought process of like, all I have to do is this one thing, and then that one thing is going to hit. And that's what most people see. It's like, oh, like that person does it. Why can't I just make this one video? But instead of looking at like the lead up, the build up, right? Most people try to compare their page 1 to other people's page 100.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the number one concern, especially for the younger generation, millennials and things like that. They look at like, oh my gosh, like say for example, Sean Cannell, right? Or Sean Cannell, I forget how you actually say his name. He's a huge YouTuber. He has like over 1.2 million subscribers on the show, but he started out like his very first video is god awful, like trash. Yeah. And he talks about it himself. He's like, oh my gosh, like this was one of the worst experiences that you can ever see. Like he's on the all stoic, like, yeah, and I might not even be energetic, and I don't really know why I'm making these videos. Like it was so bad. However, you see him now, it's like he brings the energy. He's so excited. He's so engaging. You're like, how the heck? Like, but that was his page 1, right? That was his page 1 compared to the page 100. But most people think like, oh, I'm like Sean Cannell now. Like that, him there, that's me now. And it's like, nah, bro, you still have some things to learn, right? And even if you have the presence and the personality for it, there's still so many other things you need to learn behind the scenes, right? You got to learn how to do it on a camera. You need to figure out how to do the editing and all the other pieces of it. Yeah. Whereas though, like you said, you as a parent, you ain't gonna do all that.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't, it's kind of like playing video games. I have this Fortnite family and I don't play video games. I don't understand it. But yeah, you're probably not going to be Fortnite famous by the time you're 12 and earning a living and we're setting up a trust. I mean, like I'm cool if you're that good on your downtime at doing something like that when you're going to school and you're playing with your friends and you're getting outside. And on your downtime, you start becoming good. No one is going to support you. Yeah, I'll homeschool you and you can play video games 10 hours a day. Right. But there's so much that you have to do before that's ever going to happen, you know, and you're right. So millennials are quite a bit like that also. And I understand where it's coming from because they are growing up seeing this, that they should just be this like one hit wonder. So I was going to ask you, are you starting a podcast? Did I read that?
Yeah, you did. Actually, it's funny. I just launched today. So it's it's July 24th, and I am now across all platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Google. Actually, Google's the only one that didn't accept it, I guess, per se yet. But like Stitcher, Spotify, everything else, I'm already on. So yes, kudos. Curse Breaker community, you're here.
That's awesome. So tell me about the podcast.
Yep. So the podcast it's an extension of me, man. Like you think about this whole thought process of being a curse breaker. And just to share a little bit of my background, because I hate to give content without context, right? In my background, I grew up down in Baltimore, Maryland, and I was born in a family that struggled with poverty for generations, right? I mean, my dad left when I was about 7 or 8 years old, was forced my mom to take care of me and my brother on a $13,000 a year disability income, right? So, and I say that not because I want a pity party or anything else. I just want to give people the idea of where I was, because at that point it was rough, man. I remember it was about 2 years of my life when we didn't have any running hot water in my life or in our house. So the way we actually bathed ourselves, my mom would boil these huge pots of water and pour it into a basin and mix it with some cold water and send me upstairs with a cup. And we would rinse off with that cup and then wash off and then rinse off again. She called it cup towels, right? So it was like, but for me, I still to this day, I give my mom all the credit because I didn't know I was poor until I was like 16, 17 years old. And I started to see how other people actually lived, right? And even then, like when I was 16, 17 years old, it wasn't as bad as I just described, right? Like that was only a season that was in her life. So when I look at it, it's just kind of like, it's wild how much my mom had to sacrifice to even help me not realize or adopt this poor mindset or this poverty type of mindset, right? But, you know, going on from there, I had this whole mentality of like, okay, I remember thinking to myself as a kid growing up, like, how was I born into this? Like, my mom and dad only have GEDs. My sister was the only one in the household who's actually 22 years older than me, who had a high school diploma. My brother dropped out when he was in the 9th grade. He has his GED now. But at the time, you know, I was just kind of like, how was I born into this, man? Like, why was this my circumstances when everything else? And then, I don't know, I just kind of got this, a dream was born, put it that way. Because I felt like I only had 3 options to create success after I realized like that was kind of like my ceiling that my parents have made. It's basically like, okay, as long as you graduate high school, then you're going to be good, right? That's kind of what I had in my mind. But I was like, no, I want to take that a step further. I want to be able to pay my mom back for all the sacrifices. And the 3 things that I had in my mind of being successful was either I had to be a successful or professional athlete, right? I could have to be some type of professional performer, entertainer, rapper, dancer, singer, something like that. Or I could sell drugs. Like that was my 3 options that I had. And I chose option 1. I was like, man, if I'm going to do this thing, I can't really sing. I had a confidence of your 10-year-old, right? So I didn't think I could just put a mic in my hand. I definitely ain't about the thug life, like, right? I don't want to sell drugs. So I started playing football, and football became my thing. And I developed this passion for it. And I wanted to play for the Ravens because obviously I grew up down in Baltimore and everything else. And I started pursuing that dream. And then my brother basically told me, well, hey, bro, you got a chance. You might be able to go to like play at the next level. I was like, well, what do you mean I play at the next level? I'm going to the league. He was like, no, in order to play in the league, you have to play in college. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh man, I got to play in college. Like my mom can't pay for college. What do you mean we got to go to college, right? Because again, $13,000 a year income, there ain't no way I'm getting into school with that, right? So what ended up happening was I made the decision in my mind, I got to get a scholarship. I got to get a full ride. And that became like my burning desires. What the thought process was in my head. And I remember, you know, teachers would ask me all the time, like, oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? Oh, I'm going to be a football player. I'm going to the league. It's happening. And obviously you get hit with all kinds of dumb stuff, right, Jen? Like you get people that tell you can't do it. I actually attended a high school where nobody ever earned a D1 scholarship before. So that was a problem. I heard that from multiple teachers and even administrators that was like, no, you're like, come on, bro. Like be realistic. That's a pipe dream. Focus on your grades. And I get where they're coming from. But at the same time, like you're still like they were kind of putting down my dream, right? I had one teacher when I lived in the city. She said, you have a better chance of going to jail or dying before you ever have an opportunity of accomplishing that goal. Which, again, it's not false. That is true. Statistically speaking, that is 100% true. However, you don't say that to a kid that like he tells you this is what I want to do, right? So long story short, I became the first kid in Chesapeake High School, Baltimore County's history to earn a D1 scholarship to go play ball at the next level, right? First person in history ever. And I'm glad I say that because I don't want to knock on my chest, but because I want to help other kids now accomplish that from that school too. But more importantly, what happened because of that scholarship, I became the first male in my family to ever earn a college degree. That was huge. So when we take that all the way back to the podcast, because that's where we first started, my whole mindset is about being a generational curse breaker. It doesn't matter the environment you grew up in. It doesn't matter the family that you were born into. Their past does not determine your future. So therefore, you can start identifying what it was in your family's life that maybe they were not successful at. And you can start to say like, okay, I see what you did, but I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to break new molds. I'm going to try new things, which allows me to then become this curse breaker, this changing the family legacy forever, right? I wanted my last name to now be known throughout generations. And I want my kids' kids and then their kids to also know who I was, right? Because of that decision that I made to start allowing them to have the life that they're going to have 30, 40, 50 years from now, right? It's all about the vision that you cast. And that's kind of where, obviously, I didn't have that when I was a kid. However, now, especially being a dad and a new dad, I see that more and more. It's like, okay, everything I do today, it's not impacting just me. It's impacting my family legacy. And legacy is what became the most important thing to me.
So tell me about the podcast. So what's the podcast called and what is the whole goal of it?
The podcast is called the Curse Breaker Podcast.
All right.
Curse Breaker Podcast is the name of the podcast. Goodness gracious. That was a long-winded
Yeah, hey, this is the
Get to
place
the
to be
answer.
long-winded. This is, I'm like, you're like, long story short, I'm like, you've come to the wrong place, my friend.
Right.
This is long story long. The Curse
Right.
Breaker Podcast. That is awesome. Okay.
Absolutely. So it's called the Curse Breaker Podcast. And the whole basis of it actually has show goals connected to it. So the goal behind the show is to actually start creating leadership and entrepreneurship programs inside of low-income schools so that kids can learn at a very young age when I wish I learned when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. So they can start making decisions that benefit them in their future, right? Like everybody's not supposed to fit in this mold of go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a good job, right? So if you can, the earlier you can start teaching them about entrepreneurship opportunities and teaching them how to lead themselves so they can then go lead other people. That's the purpose behind the show, is to help kids realize that for themselves. And all the donations and things that we get for sponsorships, a lot of that percentages goes towards helping develop those programs.
Oh, awesome. That's really fantastic. So do you have guests on it?
I will. So season 1 is a solo season. Where I'm actually talking all about the book, which we talked about a little bit offline, but I talk a whole lot about just the steps of the framework of the Unlock You formula that's inside of my book. So the first season is I think it's going to be 11 episodes, and it's just me talking deeper into each of those chapters and how to develop those habits as a foundation, primarily so I can always refer back to them when people are on the show, or if I get a question or something like that. I just, hey, go back and listen to episode whatever, and then you're going to get all that information. But then following that, like season 2 and forever on, it's definitely going to be bringing on a lot of other curse breakers, people who have, or like yourself, right? Where you grew up in an environment and you had a similar, like not similar background to me, but a different background than the majority. However, you didn't let that dictate whether or not you were going to be successful or whether or not you was going to accomplish your goals. So that is the huge thing behind my guess, is like you had to overcome something deep rooted before you come onto the show and share about it, because that is going to impact lives and it's going to help a whole lot of other people get out of their own way. So that's huge for me.
That's amazing. Okay, so you started talking about your story a little. We're going to go back in time. You said Baltimore, Maryland.
Yep.
And you made a comment about your sibling being 20 years apart. So take us back and tell me some of the dynamic behind that situation.
So my mom had my sister when my mom was between 15 and 16 years old. My mom was actually, I found this out recently. My mom was actually raped and then my sister came out of that. And then my dad came along. I don't know how old my sister was when he came along, but my dad came along. Then my mom and dad got married. My mom didn't even know she was going to have more kids. Then she got pregnant with my brother at 32. And then she got pregnant with me at 37. And I was literally a surprise baby. Like she went in for a routine yearly physical, and she, the doctor came in and basically said like, hey, Miss Thomason, anything extra you want to tell us, like any information, anything like that? She was like, no, like I'm good, like I don't really understand. It was like, well, you're pregnant. She was like, well, get the heck out of here, like you're lying to me. my mom is literally stereotypical Southern Black woman, right? So you can only imagine some of the words that were said inside the room, which was hilarious. But I was literally a surprise baby. My mom had no idea that she was going to have me. I think she was already between 6 to 8 weeks pregnant already, like before she knew that I was coming along. So I was born into that. And then I was, I think like I said, my dad left when I was about 7 or 8 years old. So when I was 9, I actually moved in with my sister. So my sister had 3 kids at the time. And she has 3 kids only. So her 3 kids were already born. I actually have a niece that is a year and a half older than me. She was born in 91. I have a nephew who's 4 years younger than me, and then a niece that's 9 years younger than me. But we grew up like siblings because I lived in their house. So although I'm the uncle, I always tell people I joke about it. I said I was born to be an uncle because I literally came out and I was an uncle.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
Okay, let's dive into, I know your dad left when you were 8. So what was the dynamic like? Your brother's 5 years older than you are. Were you two close? What was it like with your dad? Do you remember much of that?
So I remember, I don't remember my dad as much as my brother does, because my brother was 13 when he left, and it had a much different impact on my brother than it did on me. For me, my entire mindset, because my dad drove truck when he was around. So when he drove truck, it was like, all right, well, I couldn't really miss what I didn't have, right? because my dad, I didn't really see him almost ever. When I had to go to school, he was either just getting back in and going to sleep. And by the time I went to bed, he wasn't home yet. So I never developed that relationship with my dad. However, my brother, him and my dad was like two peas in a pod. And it was definitely a much different dynamic when he left, because for my brother, my dad made my brother all these kinds of promises, like, oh, I'm going to take you with me if we do leave and blah, 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 blah. And then still to this day, me and my brother have not seen my dad since the day he left. Like when he walked out the door, you have no idea if he's alive or dead or anything else. So like, that's another piece of the dynamic. We have no idea where the guy is. So that was definitely different as well. But yeah, it definitely had a bigger impact on my dad. But me and my brother didn't get close until I was about 13 years old. And I basically was progressing really fast in football. Like prior to that, my brother, it was like that typical older sibling, younger sibling relationship. I wanted to do everything he wanted to do, but at the same time, he just wanted to beat me up all the time. So, but I appreciated it because it made me tough.
Now, your mom, you said she was on disability for $13,000 a year, which is abysmal. I can't imagine that. And she made things work as best she could. So I know, like, hindsight, now you understand the water not being hot. But you're right. I mean, a good mom will make it seem like it's no big deal. And you have nothing to compare it to, so you don't really know. Right. What was her disability? What was that like for you?
So her disability was more so like physical disabilities. My mom is still to this day one of the sharpest knives in a drawer. Like her mind is the sharpest thing. However, me and my brother, I witnessed my father abuse my mom. And that was one night where, it was crazy situation. And, from that night, she already had like some hip issues and things like that. But when she got abused that night, it like really messed up her lower back, and she had a dislocated disc in her back and some different issues there. Then she has arthritis as well as carpal tunnel. And she also has a collapsed shoulder on her left side as well. So it was a couple of different things that happened there. And obviously over the years, they've gradually gotten worse. But that was pretty much where the disability income came from, because of those physical ailments that she had there. But again, the strength that my mom has is it's crazy. It's very like encouraging to me, the amount of strength that she always displays, despite pain that she's in and things that she's working through physically. So, but yeah, that's where that came from.
Your brother and your dad were really close, you said. So what was that like? I mean, I know he wasn't around so much that the abuse was happening like on a super regular basis, but what was that like for you as a kid from your perspective, seeing that?
Yep. So I only saw physical abuse, one time. Like it only happened once. I never witnessed that another time. As far as verbal, I mean, there'd be yelling matches all the time, but my dad, he abused alcohol and he abused drugs. So like, it'd be different times where it's just high volume yelling matches in the house of like, hey, give me my money or whatever else. Because primarily what my dad would do, or based off of what my mom told me, he would bring home a check and basically give her money from the check to pay the bills and everything else. And then he would basically go and gamble the rest of it away. And if he came back and was like, hey, I want more money, it was just like this huge argument that would then happen. Like, no, I need the money for bills and everything else. However, you're trying to take the money. And so it was a dynamic that was there. And it was different, man. Like I tell people this all the time. I found out in my household the exact way I did not want my marriage or my relationship to be. And that's no knock on my mom. I still respect my mom to the fullest. However, I had an example of what I didn't want my life to look like. I didn't want to continuously raise my voice at my wife, or just getting screaming matches with my wife, or obviously never put my hands on her or start any type of physical altercations or anything inside the house. So like, I think like I said, I found out some of the different dynamics of what I didn't want my life to look like. Right. So that was, I don't know, I guess that was kind of the silver lining for me compared to just being angry that I grew up in that type of environment.
Well, again, like you said, I mean, I remember being like junior high school when I realized the difference in income, because you go into someone's house and it doesn't look like your house, and their parents don't act like your parents. And you literally, I mean, I think for kids, they're trying to put all that together. Like it doesn't even make sense. They don't connect it. They're not asking those questions. And I just wanted to go play with my friend at her house.
Right.
and then you start to pick things up. So at 8, he left. Your brother's older. At what age did you go live with your sister, and why? Was that decision made?
It was between 9 and 10 years old.
Okay.
Primarily because the house that we were living in the city was being foreclosed upon, because when my dad left, obviously the mortgage and everything wasn't being paid. So the deal was to try to basically go live with my sister, and my mom was supposed to get back on her feet so that we can then move out and then, do our own thing or whatever else out in Baltimore County, because it was understood that you just get a better education out in the county than you do in Baltimore City. You're not exposed to the same amount of streets, basically, the same amount of hardships and stuff that's around you. So that was pretty much the goal behind it while we left. And yeah, like I said, it was 2003 when we left. I think it was November 2003.
Did your brother go with you?
He did, but he didn't stay at my sister's house for long. Primarily because like I said, we just grew up differently. So even when I was in the city, it was a culture shock for me to move out to the county, because we were so used to, like, when we came home from school, after you finished your homework, you can go outside. You could literally play until the streetlights came on. Like, you just go have fun outside. When I moved to my sister's house, it was like, no, you can't go outside ever. Like, you can only go outside when a parent was in the home or an adult was home. However, there was never an adult home because both adults were working. So it's like you come home from school and you just sit in the house all day long. And my brother definitely wasn't having that. I mean, like I said, at that point, he was 13, 14 years old. He already knew how to catch public transportation. He already had his core set of friends and stuff that was down in the city. So his decisions was just like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm gonna go do what I want to do. Right. Whereas though for me, I was still a kid, I couldn't really make that decision.
You liked your sister's house and you liked your nieces and nephews.
Of course.
And so that part was good. The relationship with your sister was good, because that's a big age difference.
Yes. So, my sister was always like a mom to me instead of a sister. So, I mean, I've always appreciated my sister, and just like any two strong-headed people, we always butt heads, right? Like, there's different times when we obviously butt heads, but still to this day, I still respect my sister. My sister has taught me a lot, and I thank her for the sacrifice that she made of bringing me in as her brother, right? But treating me like her own child. So I do appreciate that as well.
So what happened with mom between 10 and now? I mean,
yeah. So that's funny. My mom, I think I moved back in with my mom my junior year of high school. So I had to be between 14 and 15 years old, somewhere like that. And my mom was basically, we called her a gypsy. She was gypsying around because she was trying to put money together and everything else so that we can go out and get our own place. She was on the Section 8 waiting list. She was also so she was just living between houses. She would be with my godmother for a couple of weeks. She would be with my aunt for a couple of weeks, and just kind of like bouncing around doing different things. And but yeah, eventually she got stuff together. She was approved for Section 8, which I don't know if you're familiar with Section 8 housing things. But yeah, she was approved for Section 8 housing, which allowed her to get an apartment that was out in Essex, which is where I grew up and where my school was. And then when that happened, I mean, I still communicated with my sister. At that point, we're probably in driving distance, 12 minutes apart, driving wise, back and forth to my sister's house. So still obviously developed a relationship with my nieces and nephews. I think at that point, my niece, I don't know if my niece was going to college already. I think my niece was going to college. She was 2 years older. Well, she was a year and a half older than me. However, she was 2 grades above me at all times. So yeah, if I was a junior, she was already in college.
Right. So okay. Now take me through football. So you realized, and yes, it's terrible that I know statistically the information you were given was true, but it's still terribly crushing. You were in school, you were loving football, and you were working hard at that, and switching schools didn't interrupt that process for you at all.
No, because when I left the city, I didn't play organized football until I got to the county, and I was 13 years old when I was a freshman. So there was no interrupt. I didn't play any organized teams until I was 13 years old.
Awesome. Okay, so because that was one, I was like, geez, you're switching schools in the middle of this. You realize college. Now, how tall are you?
6'3".
Yeah, I thought so. So I don't know.
I've been 6'3" since freshman year. I never grew. Freshman year of high school.
Yeah, well, I know. I was 5'9" as a freshman. Like, yeah, I hear you. So you are playing football and you're getting good because that's your ticket You see this as your ticket. So
Yep.
tell me how that went with school and football, and what happened with all those naysayers when you got the D1 scholarship? Because I'm dying to know that. There had to be some.
It's funny because I'll start there first because I just love the story. I just feel like in general, once you accomplish what you say you're going to accomplish, everybody who told you that you couldn't do something, and you go back and try to like push it in their face, like like I did it, ha ha. Like they'd be like, oh, I always knew you was going to.
I knew you could.
Yeah, like I knew you was gonna do it. Like I was only messing with you. Like, come on, bro. Like you lying. Like yeah, it's 100% a lie. So that's pretty much what happened. The people that told me that I couldn't do it, they basically saw that it could, and they were just kind of like, congratulations. Like the tide turned really quick. It's just like, I'm proud of you and different things like that. And don't get me wrong, like I know I said those 3 instances, but I did have a lot of great people, a lot of great staff, teachers, parents, the people that was there for me at all times that I can sit here and I could do a whole episode just thanking each individual person that has been there for me and helped me get to where I am today. Because if it wasn't for them, I mean, I wouldn't been able to play the game that I love to play anyway, because my mom didn't have a car. My sister was working all the time. So I had to depend on other parents to get me back and forth towards practice. I was riding my bike, all kinds of different stuff that you're doing in between just to make sure that you're there and on time.
Right.
Or early, because I had a coach that said, if you're early, you're on time. And if you're on time, you're late. So we had to be early to everything.
That's awesome.
Yep.
The biggest thing that you have talked about as far as what got you through, the things that got you through, like, poverty and not having a dad around and living with your sister. I know that there's a lot of good in all of that, but in that struggle of that, it was the people around you that were supportive that were the biggest influence.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
I would say
you capitalized on that. You
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. When opportunities came around, I made sure that I was taking advantage of it, right? Because not a lot of opportunities came my way. And again, I had amazing teachers and people that took an interest in me and didn't want me to make dumb decisions and things like that. But I think a lot of it is also the association that I had. I really only had 2 best friends in high school. And it was my friend named Eli and my friend named Baker. Until I got a little bit older, I dated a girl named Dejanay, who was also a really, really huge proponent in like the association side of things, because she wasn't involved in dumb stuff either. So like, therefore, when we hung out, there was no distraction. There was no like distraction to do anything stupid. But me and Eli, primarily for the majority of our high school years, it was like we were the dynamic duo. You would not see one without seeing the other. And we came from both similar backgrounds, single mom household. He was the middle child of three boys. And that, cause I had to think about that because he does have a younger sister, but she came way later in life. She came while I was in college, I think, either in college or just before I got into college. But yeah, so like we both had this dream of like going to the NFL and being able to create this life where as though we can give all this stuff back to our moms because of the sacrifices that they had to make for us and everything. Right. So it's like me and him was like this, it was this inseparable bond. And anytime people would ask us like, bro, you going out to party? No. Are you going to smoke? No. Are you going to? No. Like none of that was even on our radar because we had like this bigger vision of like, I can't do that and go to the league at the same time. So therefore it was just, we decided not to. So association was a big aspect of that, huge aspect of just making the right decisions to get to where we need to go.
That is awesome. So you get the D1, everybody tells you, we knew you could do it. Or if anybody could make it happen for the first time, it was you.
Right, exactly.
Which is not a lie also. That is a true story.
Mm-hmm.
You go to college, D1 scholarship, you go to college. Now you graduated college. What was your degree in?
Entrepreneurship.
Aha! Shocking. Okay.
I know, right?
So college went well. You did get a degree. You're the first male in your family. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What happened with football?
So that's, I'm glad I can talk about it now because for a while it used to frustrate me to talk about. But basically what happened, something about junior years, man. Like junior years are like spoken moments for me. But junior year of college now, not high school, the reality set in that I wasn't going to the league, primarily because my college career was nothing like I expected it to be. I didn't have the playing time. At a point in time when I was in college, I mentally quit because I just accepted other people's expectations of me instead of living up to my own expectations. And for that reason, like I said, I mentally quit. So like junior year was a tough time because I had to figure out like, okay, if I'm not going to the league, if I've spent the last 9-10 years of my life and this is my dream and this is my goal, like, what am I going to do? Like, what is my next step? How do I proceed from here? What is my options? And I started focusing more, not necessarily on school, but life after school. Like I started early junior year applying to different jobs all over the country. Like I was just like, whoever pays me the most money, that's where I'm going. So that was kind of like the mentality ahead of time. And I just kept on applying to different places, doing these different things. And then football ended, right? And when football ended, it was kind of like, I don't know, it was weird. It was like a sign of relief. Like, and then I also knew like it was a sign of relief, I think, one, because I mentally quit on it already. So the fact that I no longer had to physically be there, it stopped reminding me of the fact that I mentally quit. But also it was like a sigh of relief from like, okay, now that that's over, that chapter's done, what's next? And I've always been this way. I've never been a person that's like, I'm content with where I am. My thing is always, what's next? Like, I accomplished this, what's next? I accomplished it, what's next? And that's been my mentality for as long as I can remember. I can't even tell you like an age or whatever else that popped in. But that's been my mentality. So when junior year hit, I was just kind of like, all right, if football's done, like, what am I doing next? And it became searching for different jobs, figuring out what I want to do. I knew I was only going to work for X amount of years, right? Like I didn't want to work for somebody forever. So the position that I looked for was sales positions, because I figured if I learned how to sell, then I'll be able to sell whatever I need to do when I start my own business, right?
Wow.
So that was
Okay.
the mentality behind it. And that's what I've had as far as jobs up until this day. I've had sales jobs, each one teaching me different aspects of what I need to do. But the fundamentals was always there, like the people skills and the genuine desire to help other people and not like, receive everything from it, but also what am I giving? What value am I trading to get something in return? So that's been a lot of what the mindset has been. So I don't know if that necessarily answers the question, but hopefully it adds in the right direction.
I wasn't sure if you had an injury or you decided it wasn't your thing. I didn't know why football ended for you.
Nope, no injury.
So,
Thank God. I'm a knock on wood. I haven't had any major injuries. So all the years that I played, I've never broke a bone. That's the worst I got was a dislocated finger. Like I can't bend my thumb.
well, you're deformed now, so that's that.
Oh.
That's
Outside, and I felt bad sometimes talking about it because obviously I played with guys that like,
yeah.
Especially a lot of guys that had significantly more talent than I did, significantly more potential than I did. But, they broke a leg or like, they ACL tears and all this other stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
dang, man, like, and here I am with almost no blemish, right? I got one high ankle sprain and that dislocated finger. That's pretty much the extent of my injuries.
That's a huge blessing too, moving forward.
Amen.
And I love your attitude. So I want to capitalize a little bit on this because I want to give our audience tips and tricks because it's innate for you, right? It's just second nature for you to think, okay, this is over, what's next? Do you have any idea what gives you that inner fire? Because you could have been really, really bummed out about not going to the league.
Right. I think it's like like I said, I don't know how to pinpoint it. However, just reflecting, I feel like it's just a sense of I'm either moving forward or I'm moving backwards by default. There's no such thing as standing still. Right? Like that has been like the mentality. Like, and I never really knew how to put that in words until I was like 22 years old. But I always felt like if I stop moving towards something, then I'm just gradually dying. and I never wanted that. I never wanted to die, right? Like either
right, that'll do it.
Obviously. And not in the physical sense, but like in the mental sense. Like I never wanted my mind to just be like succumb to this, oh well, this is life and this is how it's gonna be for the next 50 years. Like, nah, man, like there's so much more that you can do, so many different actions that you can take. Your entire life can change in 6 months, right? Let alone 3 to 5 years. If you're consistent at something for 3 to 5 years. So my mentality it's always been like, okay, what's next? Like after you accomplish something, you can't get comfortable. You can't get content. Like there is something else out there. There's there's something else outside of your comfort zone that you need to stretch a little bit more to get to in order for you to step into that greatness, right? Or impact the next person. Because that's another thing. Like I'm a huge proponent in leadership, right? And leadership is spelled EXAMPLE. It's all about the example that you set. So a lot of the times I feel as though people get into positions and they're maybe handed a leadership position, but they're not leaders, right? They want to dictate to people and tell them this is what you need to do. Where I say you need to exemplify what that looks like, right? You need to go show them what you want them to do, because then therefore they'll follow you. Well done is always better than well said. And even now, so that I'm a dad and I have 2 boys that look up to me and see these things all the time, like it makes me reflect all the time on my own individual actions. Like I want to make sure that I'm doing things that as they pick it up, if it becomes habits of theirs, then it's actually going to benefit them instead of harm them, right? So I think, like I said, it came from that mentality of I know I need to be moving forward. Like there's no retreat. Don't go backwards, right? And maybe it's a sports thing. Maybe it came from sports, right? Like, because I played defensive line. So it's more so like you had to penetrate. You had to push them back. They could not come the other way. So maybe that's where, I don't know, deep down inside, that's really where it comes from. Like, you ain't pushing me backwards. I'm going forward, whether you like it or not.
You learn a lot playing a team sport. I mean, no
Yes.
matter what team it is, you learn a lot from that. So I wasn't sure. Tell me about meeting your wife.
That's a great story.
All right.
Me and my wife's story is I call it a God story 100% of the time, because when my mentality going through high school and not high school, but in college, I was your stereotypical D1 football player, right? I felt as though I can do anything I want with anyone I want, anytime I wanted to do it. And that was just, my mentality, right? And when I graduated from college, I was introduced to a couple, right? The couple here locally in Binghamton who had just amazing marriage, like amazing example of parents, amazing example of like a marriage, which I never saw when I was growing up, right? So I never experienced that. As well as just, he was a successful business owner. It was like all this fruit he had on the tree. And I think slowly that mindset started to change. It reminded me of what I wanted long-term anyway. Like I remember as a kid thinking to myself, like, I'm never going to demean a woman. I'm never going to do anything to hurt women and everything like that. And I got to college, and my excuse of saying I'm not hurting you was being honest. Like, hey, this is not going to turn into anything. It's just something that's happening because it's happening, right? And it obviously I think that was the excuse that I told myself. But in the end, that it was exactly what I was doing. I was demeaning women. I wasn't treating them with the value that they deserve and everything else. And I think when I started interacting with this couple, his name is Evan and Rachel Grubb, and I started interacting with them, I was like, man, like, you guys have so much fruit on the tree. You have so much abundance in your marriage and so much love and genuine that's there. And I started, like, slowly, my mind started changing, right? Yeah. And then basically what happened was they invited me to a leadership conference that happened over a weekend. And on a Sunday, there was a optional morning worship service, right? Okay. So just to give a little bit of context, again, so my wife's birthday is July 16th. So she recently just turned 28. She's, never mind. Actually, I'll say it. She's getting old.
Yeah. Yeah.
I only say that because she would say it herself. She was like, I'm getting old. Yeah.
She's in the like, 28 Forever Club, honey. Welcome to my world. Okay. We can be in the 28 Forever Club together.
Exactly. So her birthday was July 16th, or is July 16th. And we met back in 2016, right? Okay. So it was July 16th, 2016. That was when her birthday was. We met the year before, 2015, around November time. We met on Tinder, right? And we were both on Tinder for the wrong reasons. Like, obviously, I still had this mentality of, I want to do anything I want whenever I want to do it. She was on Tinder for the wrong reasons, just looking for, attention and things like that. And I remember us matching, and I remember me asking, like, hey, like, we should get together, we have dinner, different things like that. And she just straight up, nah, this ain't going to work out. Like, no, we should not. I'm in a bad state of life and blah, 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 blah. And I was just kind of like, all right, whatever. I'm not used to getting denied, but I'll let it rock, right? And so we didn't talk for probably a couple of months, and then I reached out to her again, was like, hey, how you doing? You still in your little relationship with your boo thing, things like that. And she's like, no, it's not really, but so I was like, at this point, I'm like trying to feel my way into it, right? I'm like, all right, this is gonna be the time. I'm like, all right, well, I think again we should probably get together, let's grab dinner, whatever. And she's like, nah. still not a good time in life. So at this point, I shut this thing off. I'm like, nope, I'm not reaching out to this girl anymore. Like, if you're going to keep on denying me, what's the point of keep on reaching out and getting my feelings hurt, right? And I don't know, it was weird. It's like crazy thing happened because on her birthday, you know, on Facebook, you get notifications telling you it's people's birthday.
Right.
So I was nice. I reached out. Instead of on Facebook, I sent her a text. I was just like, hey, Colleen, happy birthday. Hope all is well and everything else. It was in the middle of this leadership conference that I was at. And she texted back, was like, hey, how's it going? You know, thank you so much for reaching out. That's so sweet of you and blah, 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 blah. And then I basically told her, like, all right, I'm not trying to be rude and I'm not trying to not text you back, but I'm in the middle of this conference. I know tomorrow I'm going to be inside of this morning worship service. I'll text you afterwards or whatever else on the ride home. And her response was different from anybody else's response that I ever got before. She was like, wait, a morning worship service? Like, that's awesome. Tell me how it goes. Like, I would love to know how, like, what happened, like, you know, all different things like that, right? And I'm like, okay, this is weird. Most people just was like, whatever, to those type of statements, right? And then that morning, so that was, her birthday was on July 16th. That was a Saturday. That morning on the Sunday, on the 17th, I rededicated my life to Christ. So I ran up front. You know, the business owners was talking about their story, and it wasn't anything preaching at you or anything like that, but it was just a business owner sharing his relationship. And I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. I want what you got. Let me run up here and claim this. And then that's basically what happened. And then it's funny because I talked to Colleen on the ride back, and I basically told her what happened. And she told me that she just basically rededicated her life to Christ that same week. And then we ended up finally getting dinner that Monday. So her birthday was that Saturday. Rededicated my life to Christ on Sunday. We got dinner that Monday, and we've been together ever since. Everybody that was in communication, all the stuff that was prior to that, it was like it all disappeared. Just boom, snaps, gone. I don't even know who you are anymore.
Big change, huh? Big change.
Huge change.
So why did she blow you off the other time?
The first time she was going through just negative. She was never in a relationship. So I was the first relationship she ever had. However, she was in situationships with like people, and never from like a sexual, physical type of way, but more so like just really cared for somebody that never even really paid her any mind. And she felt as though she was trying to overcome that. So she didn't want to basically introduce me and kind of put me inside of that in between, right? While she's still trying to figure out if this person is somebody she wants to be with or not. And then the second time she was kind of sort of seeing somebody, but not really seeing this dude.
Okay.
And it was kind of like,
you hashed it all out. You got that all figured. Okay,
exactly.
good. And now you have 2 babies and a business. So let's tie in the end. You're still working, and of course it made sense to me in the beginning. You're still working with those college age students.
Yep.
You didn't go back to high school. You're hitting them in college.
Well, I do high school as well. So
okay.
I speak in high schools as well.
They've gotten to a certain point and they're kind of like shrugging their shoulders, like, I don't know, I don't know, which all of you guys going into college are doing. Through most of college, you're still doing that. It's normal.
Right.
And you're working with them to help them have that same trajectory that you had, like the mindset part of it.
Exactly. Because I think the mind is the most important piece, right? Like when you start having that change in mindset and the belief in yourself that you can literally accomplish anything you want to accomplish, as long as you're willing to do the work and surround yourself with the right people and submit your ego so that you can learn from others and not feel like you can take the world on by your own and become this self-made person. Hate that phrase because nobody's self-made, right? Like everybody helped you at some point, whether if it was a negative influence or a positive influence. So that was my quick rant. You're not self-made. But that mindset is so important for you to develop so you can then you don't place any limitations on you at that point, right? Like once you get that in your mind, it's like you can do anything you want, you just can't do everything you want, right? You can literally at that point, like say you come out of college and you're like, man, working for somebody else sucks. I want to go start my own business. Well, if you develop the mindset first, you can go start your own business. But if you hang around employees all day long and talk to them about how you're going to start a business, all they're going to do is talk you out of it. But if you surround yourself with other entrepreneurs, and not just entrepreneurs, but successful entrepreneurs, ones that have actually created good businesses and thriving businesses, then you're going to get the mindset that you need to go do what you want to do. But you just got to start opening them doors for yourself.
Well, and I love your example. You're the D1 scholarship that had never happened in the history of your area, and you're the first college graduate, male college graduate in your family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you didn't get your GED either on top of that, you know. So you've already shown them by example that that's possible. So what do you want and how do you get it, and what are you showing yourself? Eddie, I adore you, you know already about.
Appreciate that, Jen. I appreciate it.
And of course, we have everything in show notes. People can get in touch with you. Anything you want to tell people about getting in touch with you?
Of course. I mean, just definitely go to my website. We already talked about it, eddiethomason.com. But the primary place where I hang out, like Jen already mentioned, is LinkedIn. So if you have a question, something that you want to reach out to me about, do it on LinkedIn, because that's the primary place where I hang out. And it's something I tell people all the time, Jen, is don't put me on a pedestal. Some people will listen to this podcast and they'll think like, man, that dude's so far ahead and I don't know if I'll ever get on this level, blah, blah, blah. Listen, I'm just a regular dude. I still got issues. I still got problems. I still have life that happens. The only difference between me and you is probably the fact that I made more positive decisions that have compounded over time than you did, right? So don't put me on a pedestal. Don't take me up as like this guy that's untouchable. Reach out. Let's have a conversation. I love to get to know you, because if I can help you, I will. And if I can't, have amazing people that's inside of my network like Jen, who are more than willing to help you guys as well. So don't put me on a pedestal.
I hear that a lot. Yeah, that's true. It's amen to that one. Eddie, thank you so much for being on and sharing your story. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Jen. This was awesome.
Thank you for joining today. It's been a pleasure. You can find me at momof18.com and on social media platforms as Mom of 18. A huge thank you to NGBN TV for sponsoring this podcast episode.